Hey, I'm TuxFu. Welcome to my series on taking back control of your computing, your freedom and privacy on the internet and computing in general. Today we'll be talking about one of my favorite open source projects, Nextcloud. Now Nextclouds are written in PHP and JavaScript, and it's a replacement for like Dropbox and Google Drive and Google Docs, that type of thing. I'd like to mention today that I'm capturing my audio on my built-in microphone on my webcam instead of using this. I'm trying to see which one's better, so let me know which one you prefer in the comments. I'd like to get a condenser microphone, but at the moment I cannot afford one. So Nextcloud has web dev support, which means you can mount your drive on your computer over the internet or over your LAN, so the files aren't synced on your device, but you can also use the Nextcloud client, which is available for Android, iOS, Windows, Mac, and Linux. And using that, you can actually sync the files to the local storage. Now that's really good for your laptop and mobile devices, because you might not always have internet access when you're out and about and you want access to your files that you have stored on your cloud storage. So let's have a quick look at Nextcloud, and then I'll go through how easy it is to install it. Now this is Nextcloud. As you see, it's very clean and elegant. It looks really nice. It also has grid view. Now by default, Nextcloud does not come with the kitchen sink. It's just for syncing files and file sharing support. Additional features are added via Nextcloud apps. As you see up the top here, I have a bunch of apps that I've added. Apps are very easy to install, so there's no problem there. Now file sharing is very simple. You click the share button, and here you can create a share link, which means people that don't have a Nextcloud account on your instance will be able to access that file or folder as long as they have the link to it. And you can set it up so that they have permission to edit it, or they only have permission to view and download it. You can share it with other users, or you can create a group and add users to that group, and everyone in that group will be able to edit those files and folders. So that's like a replacement for Google Team drives. Okay, so let's go over some of my favorite Nextcloud apps. Contacts does as you would expect. It stores your contact information so that you can sync up all your contacts across your various devices. If you're using Linux and GNOME shell, GNOME has Nextcloud support so that you can sync up your contacts to GNOME. And there's apps on your mobile devices so that you can also sync your contacts on Android and I think iOS. There's also a mail client. Now the mail client is very simple. It does not have a lot of features. But if your email provider does not provide a web client, this can be very handy if you don't have access to one of your own devices with an email client. You can just log into your Nextcloud instance and quickly check your emails. Now there's also a calendar app. Now this does what you'd expect, same as contacts, and it syncs up across your various devices. It has GNOME integration, syncs up with your Android calendar. I don't know about iOS, probably does. Probably the same for Windows as long as you download the Nextcloud client. There's also a password manager. Now the cool thing about the password manager is there's extensions for Chrome and Firefox so that you can automatically save passwords. And I highly recommend using password managers, by the way, and using a different password for every single service you sign up for. Now, another great thing about the Nextcloud password manager is it has Have I Been Pawned integration. So it checks your passwords to see if any of them may have been breached. Another cool app is Nextcloud Talk. Now, Nextcloud Talk does as you'd expect. It's for communication. Now, people do not need to be a user on your Nextcloud instance. You just have to invite them to a conversation. And it also has, as well as text chat support, it has video chat support and etc. etc. So it's on your own instance, so you know it's secure and private. Another cool feature is Nextcloud has versioning, which means every change you make will be another copy of that document. So if you need to roll back to a previous version, you can do so. Now, another cool app is Collabora. Now, that's like a Google Docs alternative. So a collaborative document editor. It has spreadsheets, presentation, and documents. And it's collaborative, so it's really cool. So as you see, I click the plus button, click new document, let's say hello world, and click into that, and Collabora will open up. And as you see here, I've got a nice editor inside my web browser. There you go, really awesome. The Nextcloud apps and on Android are available on Google Play and F-Droid if you have de-Googleified your phone like I have. So I don't have Google Play, but I've got F-Droid, and the apps are on here. As you see, there's the Nextcloud app. There's also Nextcloud Talk, Nextcloud Notes, Nextcloud Passwords, and you've got options to sync files and folders, and it syncs your calendar and your contacts. So see there's some stuff from my calendar. There's the Nextcloud app here. It takes a moment to load up, but you can sync up, it syncs up automatically, and you can choose which files and folders you wish to sync to your phone. So I only sync across my podcasts, and I sync across my photos, because the phone is what I use to take the photos in the first place. Go back here, go to passwords, for example. Now the cool thing about the Passwords app on Android is it'll ask for a PIN. That way if you lend someone your phone to make a call or send a text, they can't go into your passwords because they won't know the PIN. Nextcloud Talk is actually pretty cool on Android too. Works with video chat and all that. So yeah, that's Nextcloud on Android. So the Nextcloud integration into GNOME is very simple. You'd go into your settings, you'd select online accounts, then click Nextcloud, and you can add your Nextcloud account. Now that syncs up the calendar, contacts, documents, and files. It's mounted as a WebDAV drive, so the files aren't synced to the local storage on this computer. So for a portable device such as a laptop or your mobile phone, you'll want to download the Nextcloud client so that the files are synced locally so that you have access to them when you don't have internet access. But because I host the Nextcloud in my own home, and this is a desktop computer, it doesn't go anywhere, I'm perfectly happy with WebDAV support. Okay, so now let's go through a Nextcloud installation. Now here we've got server, desktop, and mobile. So obviously we'll need server. You can download the desktop app if you wish to sync the files locally. GNOME has built-in support, and if you're on Windows or Mac, you'll need to download the desktop app to sync your files. So we'll go download for server and click on Web Installer, and then do as it says here, right click and save the files to somewhere on your computer. Now if you're hosting this at home, you will need to go into your router and add in the subdomain of your Nextcloud instance. This is how you do it on Tomato. You'd have to refer to your own router's documentation on how to do this because every router is different. In the last video, I went through how to install Virtualmin. Now Virtualmin installs a full LAMP stack, PHP, Apache, SQL, etc., etc. So that's what we'll be using to set this up. If you're using cPanel or something else, then you'll have to make adjustments where needed. So we'll click Create Virtual Server here on the left. And now let's type in, under Enable Features, you want to enable SSL. We want to change the quota. We don't want it on the default quota, but we'll have to do that after we've set it up by the looks of it. So we'll click Create Virtual Server. Okay, after it's finished setting up your virtual server, make sure on the top left you have the correct server selected. Now we want to click Edit Virtual Server. Quotas and limits, and change it from 1 GB on both of these to unlimited. Then click Save. Okay, so after you've increased the disk quota, you'll want to configure redirects from HTTP to HTTPS. So to do that, we will need to go into Configure Website, not Configure SSL. Then go Aliases and Redirects. And then in Permanent URL Redirects, you'll just do a slash, and then in 2 you put HTTPS, and then click Save. Okay, in order to assign that SSL cert for the HTTPS website, you will need to add a CNAME record on your domain name register, like so. Unless you wildcarded all subdomains, in which case you won't need to add additional CNAME records. Okay, so now we should go to the file manager, which is here on the left, and upload that PHP file. Now you'll notice all these extra folders and such. So let's delete these, because they will cause problems when you try to upgrade Nextcloud. Okay, so after you've deleted all those files and folders from the public HTML, then upload the file. Okay, as you see, the file has been uploaded. So now let's go to that. Okay, so after you go to the domain / setup nextcloud.php, you will get a setup wizard. This will download, set up, and install Nextcloud. So we can click Next. So it says to enter in a single dot to enter in the install into the current directory, which is what we want. Nextcloud is now installed. Okay, let's create an admin account. I'm going to call mine Tuxfur. Enter in a nice strong password. Then click this drop down box here. And under SQLite, click the MariaDB option. Now to get these details, you will need to go back to Virtualmin. Now in Virtualmin, make sure up here on the top left you have the correct virtual server selected. Click Edit Databases, and here you'll see the database name. You want to copy and paste that into database name in Nextcloud. And then you want to click this Passwords tab, then click this here, which will reveal your database password and database username, and you'll also want to copy and paste those into these fields here. Now, using SQL, MySQL or MariaDB will yield you much more better performance than using SQLite. So I highly recommend using MariaDB instead of SQLite. Then click Finish Now, and it should complete the installation. Now I should have mentioned this before, But if you did not sign your SSL certificate, you'll get a security warning like this. So you'll need to sign under, I think it's server configuration, SSL certificate, and then you'd go to the Let's Encrypt tab and you will sign the SSL certificate. Now in my case, I'm actually sharing the SSL certificate with the main domain, so I don't need to do that. But because I have not registered this domain name, I'm only doing this to demonstrate how to set it up. I'm just going to say accept risk and continue. So when you first log in, you will get a little slideshow here telling you about the various features available out of the box. You can scroll through it if you wish, or you can just hit the X button on the top right. Now by default, each account gets these files generated, which are kind of handy if you just want to have a play with it. Okay, to get going installing apps, you'd go up here to the top left and then you'd click the apps button. You can also add new users, etc., etc. So we're going to set up and install Collabora using Docker and a reverse proxy via Virtualmin. So here we need to go and search for Collabora. There we go, Collabora Online. Then we can go download and enable. Okay, so you'll want to create a new virtual server just for Collabora. As you see, I called mine office.tuxfoodomain.org, and of course enter in a password for it, and make sure you've selected set up SSL website too. Then click create server. After you have done that, we will need to configure our redirects. So that is under services, then configure website, aliases and redirects, and we've gone through this before, you know what to do. Okay, I should mention that most apps aren't this complicated to install. Most apps will just work once you've gone into apps and clicked install and enable. This app and OnlyOffice are the exception to that. So we need to click down here in Virtualmin terminal. We need to install Docker, so we use the package manager, yum, install Docker. I've already installed it, so I don't need to do that, but that's how you install Docker. Okay, so if we go to nextcloud.com/Collabora Online, and it gives you a bunch of information about this app, but we want to scroll to the bottom where there'll be instructions on how to get it set up. So here it says install the Collabora Online server. So we need to pull the container from the Docker repository. I've already done this, so I can skip this step. And then we need to set up a container using these instructions here. So we can go back here and paste that in, but we need to replace this with the domain of our Nextcloud instance. And there we go. That container is now set up and it's running. Okay, to manage containers, we can go Docker PS, and this will list the current containers. So as you see, I've got 3 containers, and here you can see its name. So for example, if you wanted to stop a container, you go docker stop, for example, well, jellyfin. You can also do docker restart if you wanted to restart a container. So if you restart your server to get Collabora to work again, you would do docker start and then you'd put in the name of the container. As you see here, it's Hungry No Ether. Okay, so if we scroll down, here it'll say how to set up the reverse proxy. So let's go back to Virtualmin, close down the terminal, make sure up here on the top left you have the correct domain selected, then go to Services, Configure SSL Website, then click on Edit Directives. Okay, now we can start editing this file. So I'm going to start by removing all these server aliases. I'll leave the logging, but I'll remove the script and directory indexes. So script aliases, directory index, gone. And in this directory, I'm going to remove everything up to require all grounded. I'm also going to remove this CGI bin directory, and I'm going to scroll to the bottom here, remove this dev location, and also this one here, and that one all the way up to there. Okay, so I'm going to cut and then paste the SSL stuff to below the logging. Okay, so now I'll go back to this guide here, and I'm not going to cut and paste all of this because we only need it from encoded slashes needed to be allowed all the way down to here. We don't need this last line which closes that part of the configuration, and we'll paste that below the directory. Okay, underneath the preserve host, I'm going to add another proxy setting. So I'm going to go proxy pass. I'm going to make it ignore this folder here, which stores some stuff for signing SSL certificates. Just add a comment so we know what it's for. And that's the reverse proxy set up, so you can click save and close. Now you may have to restart Apache for this to take effect. To restart Apache, we'll go click on the Virtualmin tab, which should take us back to the main Virtualmin page. We'd scroll down to server status and click, see here there's Apache restart, and there's a restart Apache here. Now if you've scuffed up the configuration file, this may fail to restart. There we go, it is restarted. Okay, so now in Nextcloud, we need to go to Settings, Collabora Online, and then here there will be URL and port of Collabora Online server. So here we can put in, okay, once you've entered the domain name, you can click Apply. Okay, so now that that has been done, we should be able to click on this plus icon up here, and we'll have additional options to create documents, spreadsheets, and presentations. And we can open up existing documents. This will fail for me because I don't have a valid certificate because I'm not using a registered domain, so I can't sign it with Let's Encrypt. And we've gone over several times how to sign things with Let's Encrypt, but that option is in, make sure you've got your Office domain selected in Virtualmin. And down here, under server configuration, is SSL certificate. Okay, so as I mentioned before, other apps aren't this complicated to install. They just require you to simply go to Apps and click Install and Enable. So yeah, I highly recommend, well, download and enable. So I highly recommend having a look through these and seeing which ones you want to try out, and yeah, have fun with them. Most of them are just PHP and Javascript. Another thing you might want to play with is encryption. So to do that is settings. It's server-side encryption, not client-side encryption. So the files on your server will be encrypted. And I believe security. And here is server-side encryption. But before enabling that, I'd recommend you click and read the documentation on it. Okay, so that was how to set up Nextcloud. I believe I've shown you enough to get you started. So have a play and a tinker. I hope you like it. I certainly do. As I said, it was one of my favorite open source projects. It freed me from Google and Microsoft, from their cloud storage things like Google Drive and Google Docs and Microsoft 365 and Dropbox. I don't have to rely on them. I'm in control of my own data. If I want to expand my storage, I just buy the storage myself, like an external hard drive or a NAS, and expand my storage. And that's just a one-time payment, and I've got that storage forever. Sometimes drives fail, so it always pays to have a backup of your Nextcloud server handy. But the great thing about Virtualmin is it actually has a backup feature. You can back up each virtual server onto an external hard drive occasionally. So I like to do that every 6 months. So if a hard drive fails me, I've got a backup of all my virtual servers, and I can reinstall Virtualmin and restore all the virtual servers to a previous state, which is really handy. Anyways, I think I'll end it here. I hope this was helpful to you. See you later.